Hello, guys of United Rock Nations. We are in amazing company with Darren Charles of the band Godsticks. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Mark. How are you?
Very well. We are here, of course, to talk about the new album VOiD. It will be released in a few days. So let's talk about the album. You describe the new album as your darkest and most radical album to date. Tell us more about that feeling you have about this album.
I was thinking about this earlier on today because quite a few people have remarked that it is quite dark, and every time I think about the lyrical content, I realize that yeah, actually, I suppose it is. I'm not a very dark person. Well, I've got a dark sense of humor, and I'm sort of, but I try. I suppose that's what the album represents in a sense, is that I don't spend time um dwelling on negative things, like because it's the world isn't a fantastic place to occupy at the moment. There's a lot of things going on.
Absolutely.
Um, so I suppose, and I suppose the music is fairly a lot of our past albums. There was a lot more moments of light and but what's there still is on this album, I think is quite limited. So I think it is in terms compositionally and musically, it is quite dark, and lyrically it's quite dark. But I'm hoping that that somebody sees some positivity, and there is some positivity in there somewhere. But I'm struggling to find out where it is because people keep pointing out to me, or the track someone pointed out yesterday, or the and you pointed out that the track the album ends with the track called "Hope Is Burning." So like it's really hard to say that there are some positive aspects of this album, but all
Absolutely.
music is like Radiohead are quite dark, but that's enjoyable music, I suppose. But yeah, there's no point in pretending otherwise.
Absolutely. But this album musically seems more heavier than your early work. So tell us more about the musical orientation you took with this new album.
Well, I think we've been progressively more heavier since with our first two albums weren't pretty heavy, weren't heavy at all, really. But I suppose that I came from a rock background. That's why I grew up listening to rock music. It was like my father was listened. It wasn't called classic rock then, but he listened. I grew up listening to bands like Deep Purple, Rainbow, Sabbath, and Magnum. All the rock bands. But my father also had an eclectic taste in music, so like there's also plenty of Carpenter CDs there, just a wide variety. But I suppose my background growing up is with heavy music, but I sort of become disillusioned with it. I suppose when do you remember the band Korn? They're still going.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
remember when Korn came out. I really loved Korn. I loved listening to their music. But then every single metal band that emerged afterwards, they just like carbon copies of Korn. And it was sort of I become completely disillusioned with it. I never listened to heavy music for at least probably about 10, 15 years. It was quite a long
Oh,
time
okay.
until I discovered Devin Townsend.
Ah, yes.
He was sort of my gateway back into heavy music, and then I realized that bands like System of a Down had existed in that 15-year period that I hadn't listened. So I sort of reconnected, I suppose, back when we released Emergence to sort of the heavier side of playing. Um, and I think I've been interested. That's the kind of music I like listening to. That's the kind of music I like performing live because I think heavy music, for me as a gig goer, I is heavy music is always the best live. I really enjoy it. That's not to say that other music isn't, but energy wise, I like the exchange of energy between the artist and the audience with heavy
Absolutely.
music. So and every time we compose music, I always imagine how the song is going to sound live. So that sort of influences me. It doesn't influence the way in which the song is composed necessarily, with limiting how many parts to the album, how many sort of overdubs. But it's certainly I always try and imagine how that song is performed live. So that sort of in turn influences how each of the songs turn out. And like I said, live for me, heavy music is the best live music to both perform and watch.
Uh, Also, the music is heavier, also, as you said, but there's also a lot of technical stuff, technical work on this new album. How did you find the balance between progressive technique and raw emotional impact?
Technique for us, for me especially, it's always been about having the ability to perform the music that you want to perform. It's never been, although like growing up, when I started playing guitar in like the mid 80s and late 90s, there was just shred guitar. It was just all, Hey Rock, Steve Vai, Malmsteen, all a
Yeah.
lot. So like we were all guilty of just practicing our instruments just to play as fast as you possibly can. But as you sort of mature and you grow a little bit older, you realize that no one's interested in just a solo anyway. It's more about the song. It has to be a good song, otherwise the solo is irrelevant, So I sort of uh, went away from that kind of playing later on in life. So, and the technical stuff is the stuff that I like playing. I needed the ability to be able to perform certain things. And it's the same as like classical musicians, like a lot of guitar players often get criticized as just shredders or just playing fast for the sake of it. No one ever says that about a classical violinist, you know. They had to spend a long time practicing their technique in order to perform a composer's parts, like Flight of the Bumblebee or any wide variety of classical music. And it's the same for me. I like certain types of music, and it's required a certain technical dexterity in order to perform it. But I don't like music that showcases technique for the sake of technique. It has to serve the song. So it's easy. It's always quite easy to balance because if it's I've never included a really quick technical part for the sake of it. It has to be, it convey like fast playing or conveys a certain type of emotion quite often. If you're picking fast, a little fast picking line, it conveys anger generally, and sort of like a fluid legato line can convey, a different type of emotion, not necessarily anger. So it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy to write songs, but
Yeah, yes.
I never get influenced by technique. It's all everything, and that's why I like that's why I really appreciate about the musicians that I play with, like Gavin and Tom and Francis, is they constantly serve the song, and it's sort of unusual because we're all guilt. Every player that's spent a long time practicing,
Yes.
um, is he? Everyone wants to. Or quite often we're guilty of saying, "Oh, look what I can do," but as you grow older, and if you write in music, that should never sort of come into the equation. But that's not to say that players don't think like that. Just you just have to suppress that emotion, the suppress that eagerness, to display technique.
Fantastic. So when you write music today, do you usually start from an emotion, a riff, or a concept?
Always a riff. There's no point in. It's
Always a
always an
riff.
idea. Always a riff, or a little, even if it's on a piano or it's a synth part. Sometimes it comes from just a drum part. If I hear something that's interesting as drums, I might have some idea in my head. Um, something that's well, I always have fantastic song ideas, right just before I go to sleep every night. That's where my best ideas occur, and I never get up to. And I've got up a couple of times. I remember that I forced myself to get up a couple of times and go down to the studio because I had this idea in my head. So really tired as well. So I'm putting this idea down, and like once I came down and I basically played a Metallica riff. It was a Metallica riff that I discovered. It was exactly the same. And I was like, well, what on earth is that about? And then the next time I did it, I spent like an hour, and I was exhausted the next day. But I listened back to it, and it was complete rubbish. So I've that's it now. I'm never getting up out of bed. My mind is just tricking me, so I can forget about that. But more often than not, it comes from like riff ideas, and it all develops from there really. And like I always I always use my ear to compose. So wherever the song or wherever the idea goes next is through imagination. It's like where do I always think about where I want to go from it next, or I might improvise something just long rubbish mainly, and then just listen back and then pick out things that that might take the song elsewhere. I haven't got any. I haven't got one method. I've just got a variety of ones that work for me, really.
Did you hesitate when when you wrote a riff, then you listen to 2 days ago, 2 days after, 3 days after? Do you hesitate that that's not good, that's rubbish, that's good? How you
I
selected
do.
the riffs?
It's the next day is always the 24. It's a 24-hour test. So like something I could work on something today, and it might sound amazing. It might sound I might think, oh, this is the best thing I've ever written, and then 24 hours later, if I listen back and it's still good, it's just like 50-50. It is 50-50 a lot of the times. If I listen back the next day and I still think that's really good, then that's kept no matter what because I know that there's something there. But if I listen back the next day and I don't like it, it's just gone. And but even saying that, mind, there's about 4 or 5 nearly complete about 4 complete songs really that
Oh,
I wrote for this album that after a while I listened back to them and I felt like I forced them. I felt like I was forcing the issue, and I didn't really like, even though I could release them, and I didn't really like them that much. They didn't do much for me. They didn't move me. Certain bits did, but it didn't. So I scrapped quite a lot of songs, more songs this time than I've ever done before. There's about 4 or 5 songs in there that I nearly finished or almost finished songs that just I didn't think were good enough. But I tend not to give up. If there's an idea like this, that 24-hour test, I keep going, I keep pushing and pushing. But I'm always honest with myself. Like if I finish the song, if I genuinely think, yeah, I can't like because at the end of the day, you have to write for yourself. If you don't enjoy it, you've got no right really expecting someone, hoping or expecting someone else to. You have to enjoy it yourself, really.
and you don't share your ideas and your music with the other members of the band? Just
I
to have
do as it goes. Once
their
again,
opinion.
yeah. Once when I get to a certain point, if I get to like say like a verse and a chorus, perhaps like maybe like 50% of the song, then I'll share it and ask for their opinion. Um, Most of the time I don't care, and I know that sounds arrogant. I don't mean it in that way, in that I'd listen to what their opinions is, but if they said they didn't like something, I see it as more of a challenge more than anything else.
Ah, okay.
You know, say, okay, I'm gonna I know that this is good, and I'm gonna work out how to convince you that it's good. So I'll work even more on it, finesse it a little bit, expand it, and then I'll put it back and say, oh, what do you think now? Maybe incorporate some of their ideas because sometimes they have some ideas with arrangements. Lots of ideas they have. Their ideas come mostly towards once a track is almost complete. Uh, that's when they give their input and their parts. Gavin often rearranges some of my guitar parts. He'll put synth ideas down. Tom is vital for just knitting the songs. Even though I'm writing demo parts, Tom is vital that Tom comes here and he records with his MIDI kit, and he sort of stitches the song together. So without them, they're never complete songs. I'm only putting together demos. Their contributions are vital. But yeah, I do share, but I often ignore sort of any criticism. Just to say I'll prove you wrong in the end. And quite often, if I believe in something, I generally do win.
Just before you talk about the fact that you work with a lot of songs, you talk about 3, 4 songs that you have on the computer, but tell us why you have the 10 songs on the album, and then you have 3 bonus songs. Why the bonus songs are not included in the album?
They don't fit the vibe of the album really,
Because
because
we
there's one.
haven't listened, we haven't listened the bonus song, so we don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, there's a song on there that called "Downplay" on that bonus disc. It's a song that we recorded the drums for back on the last album. This is what a winner looks like. Um, and we actually had 4 spare songs, and doesn't happen very often to us. We usually write exactly the amount that we want to write, and no more. But we had like 3 or 4 songs spare that we recorded the drums for. But we didn't, finish everything because we felt that the 10 songs we had there were the right songs for that album. Because it's an album has to be, and it's still, even though people don't consume albums in the same way anymore, we
Absolutely,
still
yes.
consider it. For us, an older generation, we still I still consume music in the same way. So if you're going to release an album, at least, it has to follow a certain, we try and sort of like make it a journey sort of
Yes.
thing. But this particular song, the downplay that we really liked, it's an acoustic song. It didn't really fit the other album because we felt it was a bit too light, a bit too sweet in a sense. There's a really nice melody. Um, so it didn't fit this one either, obviously, because this was even darker. But we thought that, well, this is like nearly, what was it, three, four, like this is nearly like 5 years old, this song is now, and I really
Okay.
want to release it. So I thought this is a good opportunity to do it. Okay, it don't fit the vibe of the album, but it'll fit the vibe of this bonus disc, really. So that was it. That was an opportunity to finally release that song more than anything else. Yeah.
So let's talk about the lyrics of the songs. What are the main topics you like to talk on the new album?
Probably about how miserable I am, really. That's what it seems to be. That's what it seems to be. I'm starting to like question myself. I'm thinking, am I subconsciously an extremely unhappy person? Like, and maybe I am. Maybe I am. I don't know. I suppose I was when I was younger. Um, lots of things concern like sort of inner turmoil, like a negative like MIA, for instance, is
Yes.
that song in particular. It talks about sort of the negative voices that we have. Everyone has a negative voice. It's really important, to have sort of a contrary opinion in your own head in order for decision making. But as growing up, mine was always too loud. So it always sort of pissed on everything that I ever did, really. It's always reminded me that, if I felt like I achieved something, it would always say, well, really, and point out that uh, you haven't really achieved anything, or like, you still can't do this. Only ever interested, I still possess that now, and like, I'm only interested in what I can't do, rather than what I have done. So it's a good thing in that you don't rest on your laurels. You don't sit there and just celebrate everything you've done. It's just, I'd like to move on, and that's a good thing. But on the same token, it doesn't have to have an additional element which says, yeah, move on, but also you're rubbish. You're useless as well. So like that's a song about those, because it's a constant battle. It's like, and I'm not the only one that experiences it, but it is always a constant battle, and you learn to fight a bit more as you get older, and you got a bit more perspective. But that song's about that, and there's songs about just the state of, I suppose, the communication these days, and how people interact, and how social media. I know it's sort of trite to talk about these things, but it is like most people sort of derive their news these days from social media, and it seems to be there's very little, there's no nuance. There's basically just polarized opinions, and there's even in politics. It's not just in politics. It's just everywhere. Everyone seems to have to choose a side. Nobody really wants to meet in the middle, and like both sides. And there seems to be only two sides. It's left and there's right, and that's it. And they're both as bad as one another in many respects. Like left is like most musicians are sort of progressive and left wing leaning. That's just the way it is. That's just the fact, But that's not to say that that's the best way to be, because even like over the years, in the last 5 years, where there was sort of an encouragement to be more inclusive and more progressive in your thought, and more, which is a great thing. It was a fantastic thing to be more inclusive. But then the people just took it too far. Then it's sort of like, so when they started ignoring, they started concentrating on language and ignoring intent. So it was like some person might have really good intentions, but it's like, oh, you used the wrong word. You used the wrong word, and then like you just basically saying, I tell you what, those people just think, I tell you what, I'll pop along to the right now because you people are horrible. And it's like, and it's just they're all as bad as one another in many respects. They're both extremes, the extreme left and extreme right. They're all authoritarian in many respects. So it's sort of like that's what VOiD is all about in a sense. Is that I don't spe- even I don't spend my time really. taken much notice. I do think things are a little hopeless, but I'd rather not think about it. I'd rather just just ignore what's going on because I don't think it's going to improve. As I was saying, there's like I suppose there's a lot of the lyrics concern just the state of communication with people these days, and a sort of retreat into the void is which word because I genuinely don't think that there's going to be much. There's not much hopeful there's not a great deal of hope, if you ask me, because people I think are just. I think this is going to be the set pattern for quite a long time, the division, because this kind of division is being fostered purposely. It's in play. It's not even. It used to be quite secret. They used to do it covertly, like news. When I was growing up, like newspapers, you knew in this country you'd have like a newspaper. There was a conservative newspaper, a Labour newspaper. So no one ever reported the news really. It was always skewed to their particular political slant. So it's nothing new, but what is new is that it's being done in plain sight. No one's trying to hide the fact that they're divide and turn one person against the other. And I think that's going to continue. I don't see any improvement, but I also don't see the point in sort of concentrating on it and sort of spending time thinking about it, even though I wrote about it, really.
So let's talk about touring. We know that you start a UK tour in April and May. What are your touring plans after the UK tour? Because we haven't seen any tour in France, for example, or in Europe. What are your plans to tour after the summer?
Well, we touring wise, we would play every single day of the year in every country, but it's just difficult to find. It's difficult to find promoters who are interested in promoting a show in Europe. Um, we and it's difficult to find support slots really for with the European bands. Like we did a tour with a band called Lizard from
Yes.
France, in fact. Incredible band, absolutely incredible band. I love that band. So we did a great tour with them. I think December 2024, and we they of all the places, I don't think we played France, because they're French based, so they got their own shows there. But we managed to get on that tour, and that's the only sort of opportunity we really get to play Europe is if we get an opportunity to support. If there was any promoter interested in putting any Godsticks shows, we'd be there in a second, because playing live is as I said earlier on, when we compose, we're always imagining what the songs are going to sound like live. It's the most important thing for me. I love studio work. That's not to say that that's not important. It is. Writing and creating is part of the process, but communicating the music is just as important to me, and that's something that I've only come to appreciate in the last like 10, 15 years just how much it means. Because when COVID happened and it was taken away,
Mm.
I never really I didn't have any inspiration to write. I was probably the only musician who didn't write any songs in that time. So whatever opportunities we're always pushing for opportunities, always looking for support slots, always looking for any promoters who might be interested in bringing us across. So whatever comes our way is something we'll immediately. It's not we don't even think twice about it. It's never about money because and if it was about money, we wouldn't be in the music business. It's about finding promoters who are interested in sort of like putting on a Godstick show, really.
Okay. So thank you very much for all the information about the new album VOiD. We love a lot this album. It's a great album. So thank you very much for this great music. And we hope you to see in France. Why not?
Fingers
Uh,
crossed.
fingers crossed, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Great talking to
You.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye.